All right, today we will be going over pass by value versus pass by reference in Python. So if you're new to programming, this might be a little confusing, but stick with me and we'll walk through this together. So in Python, let's take a look at simple variable assignment. So we'll do something like variable x equals 1. And then let's set a new variable y equal to x. All right, now let me print these. So let me format this kind of nice. We'll do a dot format x, and then we'll copy this over and have y. So let's print this, and you can see x is 1, and then y is also 1. This makes sense, all right? Now, if I were to change x, set x equal to 2, right? Let's print this. We see that x is 2 and y is 1. This makes sense, right? I first assign x to 1, then assign x to y, right? Then now reassign 2 to x, right? And so now x has 2 and y has value 1, right? Let's look at something else. Now, let's pretend that x is a list. So let's say a list with two values, 1 and 2. And we'll create another variable, y, set that equal to x. And we'll do the same print statements here. Let's run this. We can see x is a list that has 1 and 2 in it, and y also is a list that has 1 and 2 in it. All right, this makes sense. But now let's see what happens if I add another item to x, right? So x dot append, let's just say 3, right? Now I'm going to print this and see what we get. Whoa, what just happened? Something's a little fishy, right? If I added 3 to x, how come y also changed, right? That doesn't really make sense, right? So let's go back to the original example and I can explain why this happens. So in the original example, this is what's known as pass by value, right? So let's go through this line by line. So first we have a variable x that's set to 1. So in Python, under the hood, you can think of x as a reference to 1, or some people like to say it points to 1. So let me illustrate this. So we'll do x, and we have 1. And we have an arrow that goes from x to 1, right? So now we have this variable x that references or points to 1, right? Now we have y equals x. So we have y, and then x has the value 1. So we have 1. And now y points to 1. So what happens under the hood here when we set x equals to y is that we actually create, y equals x, is that we actually create a copy of the value that x points to and assign that to y, right? So this first line, x equals 1, right? We create this where x points to 1. The second line, y equals x, we create a copy of what x points to, which is 1, right? And then assign y to that. So we do this, right? And then here, when we set x to 2, we change what x points to 2, right? And this is what's known as pass by value, right? This creating this copy of the 1 and then setting y equal to that, that's called pass by value. And in Python, this only happens with immutable data types, right? And this includes like numbers, like ints or floats, right? Strings, tuples, booleans, etc., right? So for example, if x is equal to, let's say, hello, I set y equal to x, and then I reassign x to something like world, right? And I print this. You can see x is still world, and then y is still hello, right? Cool. So that was pass by value. Now, let's go back to this list, right? And we will draw a diagram here too, but this will be known as pass by reference, right? So what happens here when x gets set to this list 1, 2? Let's take a look. So we have x, and then we have a list 1, 2, right? So just like before, when we assign this variable x to this list, we get a pointer, right? X points to 1, 2. Now, when we do y equals x, we don't create a copy of 1, 2. We actually create a new pointer y to the exact same object that x is referencing, right? So instead of creating a brand new list, 1, 2, we point y to what x is pointing to, right? So these are pointing to the same list. So when I append 3 to x, whatever x is pointing to, y will also reflect that. So when I append 3 here, y is still pointing to this list, and that's why when I run this, it reflects in y as well. And as you can guess, this pass by reference only occurs for mutable data types. And this includes like lists, dictionaries, sets, etc., right? So I could do this with a dictionary too. So let's do something like 1A, maybe 2B, right? And maybe I can say I'll add a new key to x. So at the key 3 will equal to C, right? If I run this, you can see it's pointing to the same dictionary, right? So to recap, pass by value, right, only happens in Python on immutable data types, right? Where a new copy of the object that's being referenced is created, right? So when I set y equal to x, whatever x was pointing to gets copied, and then y gets set to that. So then when you change x, that does not reflect in the variable y. But here, pass by reference, this only occurs for mutable data types in Python, right? Where we do not create a new copy of whatever the original variable is pointing to. Y just points to the original list, dictionary, set, whatever, right? So that when we modify x, it's also reflected in y. So I hope that was a really good recap, at least an introduction to pass by value and pass by reference in Python. I'll see you in the next one.